Hello, everybody, and welcome to Swinging from the Hips with our special guest tonight, former chairman of the Eden Roskill Cricket Club and current chairman of QMU Cricket Club, Aaron Ranchot and Stephen Nobilo, respectively. But before we get into that, our guests, welcome to Rohit and Taryn. And how are you guys doing this evening?
G'day. Good to be here.
How's it,
It's
boys?
been a full-on week.
Full on week, and we're ready to talk a bit of cricket then. So what we'll do, we'll get into this week in history with Rohit. So away you go, mate.
Yes. So look, there's quite a bit to pick from this week in the week in history. So I've picked out a few that I thought were quite good. Back in June 25th, 1983 was a memorable day for the Indians, and not so memorable, unfortunately, there for the West Indies. West Indies thought that all they had to do was turn up to the World Cup final and pick up the trophy, but it was a shock because they were upset by the Indians in a low-scoring one-day game and they scored 183 all out and beaten the West Indies there. And 51 years earlier then, though, in 1932, India is where they started their inaugural test, played their first test match against the English, and they lost that match by 158 runs. Now, speaking of starting of test nations playing, West Indies also began their test status back in 1928, 4 years earlier than the Indians, and they were beaten by the English again. And West Indies were quick learners, however, and they recorded their first test win in their sixth test match. Now, moving along, 2014, who says test cricket's boring, eh? So the Sri Lankans winning the test with one ball to spare and the series. And this was against the English, and winning on that last day with one ball to spare. Well, that would have been an exciting test match to watch there over the 5 days. Moving to 1979, June 23rd, Big Bird, Joel Garner. He was crushing batsmen's toes in the World Cup final there with a blistering spell of 4 wickets for 5 runs, and the West Indies taking the win and retaining the World Cup, which they'd only previously won back in 1975, being the first World Cup of one-day cricket. And then 2013 was the last edition of the old Champions Trophy, which is got New Zealand's name on it too, luckily. However, India won that last Champions Trophy in a rain-reduced match of a 20-over affair against the English, and that game was the Indians were led by MS Dhoni, and he was the first captain and probably going to be the only captain to have won all 3 international ICC trophies. Because I don't think they play that Champions Trophy anymore. Now, just a few birthdays, a couple of birthdays, should I say. Kenya's best batsman, Steve Tikolo, born in 71, June 25th. He led the Kenyans to a sensational win against the West Indies in the 1996 World Cup, and he also led them to the semi-final in the 2003 World Cup before he retired in 2011. Also, we saw June 24th, 1986, Stuart Broad, the English bowler, became the fifth English bowler to take 300 test wickets. And also, a freak start to his test career, I have to say, was Vernon Philander, 24th of June 1985, had a birthday. He became the second fastest to take 50 test wickets. So there we have it, week in history and a few birthdays.
Thanks for that, Rohit. This is a really interesting couple of events over the history there, particularly that, as you say, that last ball, run type win there so many years ago. It's like, as that, who said that test cricket is boring?
Exactly.
Right, well, moving right along. Taryn, you're...
For 5 days, down to the last ball.
You're after 5 days, down to the last ball, exactly. So now moving to the present, and we will say hi to Taryn. And Taryn, take us through what happened this week in cricket.
We'll start with the little bit of cricket that was played. You know, we've all talked about the West Indies tour. They've arrived in England. They're preparing, and they've obviously got through their isolation period and now going through the process of an internal warm-up game. Craig Braithwaite and Shea Hope got 80s in their warm-up fixture, internal warm-up game, with Alzari Joseph picking up a 4-fer and Raymond Reefer getting a 5-fer in their warm-up as Reefer starts becoming a outside bet, pushing for a test selection. Obviously, that's due to COVID, and the COVID is also playing a bit of an impact in the next tour to England, which is the Pakistani team. Shadab Khan, Harris Rauf, and Haider Ali were the first 3 who tested positive earlier in the week. And this was followed by another 7 names: Kashif Bhatti, Mohammad Hasnain, Fakhar Zaman, Mohammad Rizwan, Mohammad Hafiz, Wahab Riyas, and Imran Khan also testing positive. This makes a third of the 29-man squad due to travel in under 2 weeks testing positive for COVID. However, a day after Mohammad Hafiz tested positive, he tested negative in a private test that he got conducted for himself and his family. So let's see what happens on that front. Obviously, that's throws a bit of spanner in the works for ECB, but ECB remain confident that the tour will still go ahead. Now, Cricket South Africa is considering legal action after a fraudulent document claiming that Mark Boucher had a stake in the 3TC comp there, and 3TC is the 3-way T10 or T20 competition, or that was mooted not so long ago. It didn't get off the ground because of the game was due to be played at Centurion, which is a bit of a hot spot at the moment in South Africa. However, they are looking at legal action trying to safeguard Mark Boucher's interests, which is not surprising because it is a brainchild of Paul Harris, who happens to be a very close pal of Mark Boucher, the national head coach. Now, the Black Caps schedule has been released, and 4 opponents, West Indies, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Australia, are penciled in to tour New Zealand, and New Zealand cricket is very upbeat and confident that this will go ahead. The big story, however, to me, is a big moment in women's cricket. Cricket's most famous club, Marylebone Cricket Club, as we know, as MCC, has announced its first woman president 233 years after it first came into existence. 43-year-old Claire Connor, the former England women's captain, was confirmed at the annual meeting, and she'll now be succeeding Kumar Sangakkara in her role. This is the first time, so quite a big moment for women's cricket. That's current news.
That's the news of today. Thank you for that, Taryn. And yeah, absolutely a big move for the MCC, isn't it? To obviously put a chairman, a female in that top role at the club, and it's a great move. I think progressive move, you might say.
Absolutely. I think it's a good way for you to lead into our guests and talk about a bit of administration.
No, let's segue nicely. And as Taryn says, our guests for tonight are Aaron Ranchod from the Eden Roskell Cricket Club and Stephen Nobilo from the QMU, chairman at the QMU Cricket Club. And I'm just trying to read a message that I'm getting from Stephen. We're not sure whether we're having a few technical difficulties with Stephen. Hopefully they've been sorted, but let's bring him into the show and see how it goes. Welcome to Aaron. Welcome, Steve. Let's see if we can hear you.
Evening, everybody.
Yep. Stephen, how you doing? Nope. Looks like, unfortunately, we still can't hear Stephen there. So we're having some technical difficulties there. But as I said, tonight's show, we're talking about club cricket and basically the ins and outs of club cricket. So we're going to dive into what it takes to run a club or what's involved in running a club. Before we get that, we're going to set the scene a bit. So we're going to get Taryn to just basically give us a rundown of what the structure of cricket in Auckland looks like, with the likes of Auckland right down through to sort of how the club and how it all knits together. So Taryn, can you give us an understanding of how that works?
Okay, so obviously Auckland Cricket Association, should I say, is run by a board of directors, which is then administered by the CEO, Ian Laxon. They have their own team. They've got a community element, and they've got a community arm, which oversees the participation front. And then they've got a high performance league, which is overseen by Chris Mundell and the high performance coaching staff. Within the participation or within the amateur community game, you've got 16 cricket clubs. Now, 16 cricket clubs. Within the 16 cricket clubs, there's different tiers. There's two. And I'm sure I'm happy to be corrected here by the guys that know a bit more. There's your principal club status, principal clubs and community clubs. There's some technical differences there, but the big driver is you must be a principal club to be playing Premier Cricket. So clubs have to try and push to achieve that status. And so that is the big thing. So if you look at of the 16, I believe 14 of them are principal clubs. Clubs like Cornwalls, Parnells, Howards, etc. They are principal clubs and they've forever have had that status. There have been historically a couple of clubs that have dabbled with losing that status when they don't keep up with their service level agreements. And then you've got community clubs that are aspirational clubs that want to grow with the growth of Auckland. They're starting to hit a lot of numbers, ticking quite a few boxes in terms of service level agreements and starting to gain principal status. One such club is Kumeu Cricket Club. They went from a community club a few years ago to achieving principal club status in 2019. Aaron, Ashwin, Rohit.
Sorry, sorry. As I said, just in the chat room, this was my first go at running the show all by myself. So apologies for the slight glitches that we get along the way. No, so we'll give you a brief rundown of how the structure of cricket in Auckland is set up. As I said, this is basically we've got our chairmans from Auckland set up. So that's obviously how it works in Auckland. It'll be very similar as we work through the country and how that goes as well. So moving into the club structures, well, welcome, as I said, Aaron. We're having a few technical difficulties with Stephen, so hopefully we can sort those out and bring him in to the show as well at some stage. But what we'll first start off is now that we've got an overall understanding of how Auckland cricket and then the clubs filter in or work into that system, we're just going to ask the real basic question here of what is the objective of a cricket club underneath Auckland cricket? So, Aaron, would you like to sort of give us a bit of information, your view of what a cricket club's objectives are?
Good evening to everyone. Basically, the objective is to promote cricket within your local community to get as many, participants playing the game of cricket and being involved in the game of cricket. So that's the basis of it all, and that's what each club in each area around Auckland should be doing and looking at, is growing your numbers through getting as many children, adults, through, just coming along and playing the game of cricket at whatever level they are suited for.
And where are you looking? I mean, like, are you looking at that sort of real beginner level, that sort of the nursery to bring them in to get them through, or are you actually looking at even adults as well, and where you can pull adults in as well?
No, as I said, as a club, you're looking to pull in whoever, it doesn't matter their skill level, what age they are, what sex they are. It's, it's just about coming along, participating and enjoying the game of cricket, learning about it and sharing your experiences and so forth with a group of people and as many people as, that are at the club. Obviously, within that group, there are certain, levels, people that aspire to want to go further in that, and that part of that, the club scene is to provide a setup where those people that want to aspire to play at the top level can, work their way through and be seen by, obviously, firstly Auckland cricket, and then go to higher honours from there, maybe luckily enough, New Zealand cricket.
And so, how are you trying to structure a club? Obviously, as you said, you've got your little nursery type thing. You've got your junior cricket, and even within junior, you've got 2 levels. Then you've got your guys that just want to come along and roll their arm over, and then you've got that the players that are trying to stretch themselves to go that step further, to play in the Prems or to play in that top team of the club. So, how are you structuring a club, and who's running what to achieve those objectives?
Sure. So, like, basically, with a club, what you've got is you you've got a constitution which basically ties you back to Auckland cricket, and Auckland cricket sort of you sit down with them and you work out at what, as Karen mentioned, the service level agreement. So, in the service level agreement, there's certain things that a club have to graduate from being a community club to a principal club. Now, basically, that one of the basic things of a cricket club is you're going to have a club manager who is basically your CEO. We do have a club committee, which is basically made up of volunteers, apart from the club manager. The club committee sets down various objectives, etc., that they want to try to achieve as a club, and obviously part of that is you're fulfilling your commitments to Auckland cricket, which can they provide you with some funding, which is another sort of story and the way that's structured.
Put a dollar sign next to it. How does funding work? How does funding work?
Funding works. Yeah, basically, it comes down to your numbers.
Your numbers.
It comes down to your playing numbers.
Is it senior numbers or junior numbers?
Yeah, it's broken down to different components from your junior numbers through to your senior numbers, through to your social team numbers, and that. Obviously, the more juniors you have, that's got a higher rating than senior members do. So,
what about girls? Where do they fit in?
Sorry, what was that, Taryn?
Where do the girls fit in? Do they have quite a bit of weighting on their kind of girl? If you have a lot of girls teams, do you get more money or?
No, well, put it this way: when I was there, there wasn't any extra weighting to having any girls participating or that. That sort of thing was being discussed probably. How do I put this? Sort of in the time frame that I was sort of decided to move on, as the terminology goes. But yeah, look, various clubs had, there was with girls cricket, it's quite different because it's you're starting from scratch and trying to get as many girls involved, trying to get them into the sport and that, and it's a matter of going out to schools or whatever and trying to recruit them. If you've got parents coming along with their sons and that to enroll them, and they usually come as a family, so they'll come with the girls.
Aaron, I've heard a lot of clubs, not just Eden Roscoe or anyone else. I've heard a variety of clubs say in meetings, I'm talking about recent stuff, said, "Oh, look, we don't actually get a lot out of going into schools. It's just a waste of money. We never really draw anyone back to the club. It's not really worth our while."
Yeah, look, Sarah, it's, as I say, my involvement. I started particularly in Roscoe Cricket Club way back when my son first started playing. So I think that was from the age of 6, and I just came in as a parent at that time. And I don't know who, someone sort of saw some skill in me or whatever, and got me more involved in the club running on committees and things like that. And it's sort of, I just sort of graduated and moved further up the rankings, I guess, as no way to put it on this. But yeah, as I say, funding is a very interesting issue, especially like where it comes through Auckland cricket and that, is say you have a participation or a service level agreement that you have with them, and what, depending on your numbers, etc., they will give you a certain amount of money, but they won't they'll imply where the money is to be used without directly saying you've got to do this and this. When you come to the end of your review, that you'll they'll look at where you've spent money in that. So one of the main things, like being a principal club, is that you've got to have a club manager, right? And so all principal clubs, in effect, should have a paid full-time club manager running the show. As I say, put it back into a normal business of CEO, and then your committee, board members, is your your board, right?
Does it pay well? Does a club manager's role, like if somebody's listening out there, what kind of range does a club manager's job sit in? Like, you don't have to say a figure, but in your experience, I mean, I'm sure you've heard different clubs talk. What ballpark figure, what range does it fall on?
Look, the different clubs have
job.
Yeah. Look, it's the different clubs have different ways they do it. You know, some clubs are lucky enough where they've got guys maybe who are retired, or don't need huge amounts of money, are able to, and just for the love and the passion of the game, will go and sort of apply for that job. So you've got some clubs that may be paying 35,000, whereas you've got 85. Other clubs. Yeah, as I say, whereas you've got
85.
other clubs paying, up to 70. I think I've heard 70,000 or 80,000. I don't know, Karen, you may have heard those sorts of things going around as well.
Here.
Oh, here he is.
Welcome, Stephen.
I'll just take this opportunity here while we're talking about salaries of our club managers to bring in Stephen. Hopefully, can we hear you now, Stephen? That's it. So we can make out Stephen. Stephen, we've just sort of been going through the objectives of a club, and then
I can hear you. I don't know if you can hear me.
We can hear you, Stephen. We can hear you. So we're basically just talking about the objectives of a club.
Okay. Well, that's good.
So in terms of for QMU, what sort of objectives have you got for your QMU cricket club?
In terms of just providing cricket to the wider community, which obviously is the core role of a cricket club, continuing to grow, I suppose. A bit of a journey over the last half dozen seasons, where we've gone from being a community club to now a principal club, which is the sort of the top. Currently, 15 clubs in Auckland have what they call principal club status, where you've got so many senior teams, so many members, functioning committee, and infrastructure like changing rooms, club rooms, etc. So, yep.
Okay, I suppose, and just sort of getting that sort of. In terms of your structure within your club, you've got your sort of nursery type environment going through to your juniors, your community, and then your prem players for that. Okay, how are you structuring that at QMU?
How are we structuring it? So you have your introductory or your junior part of cricket, which we, like quite a few clubs in Auckland, moved to Friday nights because it works for mum and dad and the kids as well. And that's basically anywhere from year 0 at school right up to now we're dealing in ages as opposed to school years in cricket, up to under 9 basically. And they play a whole lot of sort of fun activities, skill-based games, eventually graduating to playing a in-house 6-a-side softball game. And from there, you have Saturday morning cricket, which is or Saturday afternoon, which is junior cricket, and that's clubs is run. Now you're going to have to interrupt me if Aaron's already explained this, and I'm just sort of repeating what he said. So I think I've missed about 20 minutes of the show so far through to technical difficulties.
That's right. No, you're going good so far.
So,
Carry on.
oh, cheers. So you have the junior part of the club, which the idea of that is to make cricket enjoyable for young people and introduce them to the nuances of the game and hopefully set them on a pathway where they end up dovetailing into the senior part of the club, where depending on what they want to do with their cricket, they can either go to play more serious cricket, the premier grade stuff, the 2-day cricket, or they can play with their friends in a more of a social environment in T20 or 1-day cricket, depending on what grade they want to play in.
What do clubs generally have in terms of the player that
going
wants
into
to push?
too much detail, the sort of the structure.
Yep. Oh, just so for a player that sort of sees that, hey, look, I want to be a black cap one day. What do clubs provide in terms of trying to help them get to their goal and ambition? Nope, you there?
Is Stephen there? Or you...
Oh, yeah, jump in.
Oh, I'll jump in. Look, yeah, what we've got the clubs have basically do is we have different level coaches that the clubs hire. That's part of their sort of objectives and that. So you basically, if you got junior kids, you know, coming in, you, like Stephen said before, you're teaching them the basics. Once they move on, as they get older, they started getting separated out from the kids that are quite good to, you know, your average and et cetera. But you've got as I said, professional coaches who are at the club. They'll help you identify some of these guys and that, and you run various development squads and things like that to help improve the kids' skill level as they, identify them as, there's children that want to be fast bowlers, there may be children who want to be spin bowlers, so they get those various clinics. You got and then obviously your batting. And then during school holidays and that, these coaches are running these clinics, etc. Which basically if obviously during the summer they're playing games and that, but these clinics are run right through winter and everything. So
is that the clubs or is that a rep type level?
The clubs can do it, and the other thing that I guess we've missed out there is within the different areas of Auckland. So Auckland's split up into sort of it's 4 regions in it. Taryn, sorry, memory's fading a bit as I get older. But you got sort of like Western, Eastern, Southern, North Shore, and Central. So they graduate into district cricket, and you've got the clubs are split into various districts. So, for example, out west, you've got Waitak, suburbs, Cumu, and I think Eden Roskell's put into that group. And what you'll do is from the clubs, you'll have children nominated to go into that sort of that are seen eligible or skilled enough to play districts cricket. So they'll go into that there where they'll Western districts have a program set up, and they'll have various age group teams that will come from all these kids, and they'll go play Eastern District. You'll have Christmas tournaments and things like that. There's a lot of, well, put it this way, the clubs put a lot of commitment and time into training and upskilling these children, and that there's a lot of money involved in it, for the clubs. And as I say, when you're talking about where this funding comes from, a very minute amount of money actually comes from New Zealand cricket and Auckland cricket to the clubs to do this. The clubs basically have to go out and find their own funding run these sorts of programs from. And
So basically, so if we just go back to, so you did mention before, if we take it back to when we had Auckland Cricket and we talk about some of the objectives and becoming a community club, principal club, and there is funding that comes from Auckland Cricket if you meet certain KPIs, for want of a term. Obviously, that doesn't meet that gap. Where are we going for? Where are the clubs going for that funding? How are they achieving the funding?
So I was just about to go there. Luckily, we've got, I guess, in Auckland and in New Zealand, establishments called pubs, and within these pubs, you've got in a certain corner of the pub things called gaming machines, and certain parts of the population and community like to play on these machines, and part of the I guess the things that the pub owners or the drinking establishment owners have to do is the money that comes from these gaming machines has to be given away to various organised charities and organisations, and this is where sports clubs vie for this money from these various trusts they've called, that these pubs contribute to. So you got to go within your local area, drinking establishment areas, and apply to the trusts within those areas, hopefully to get money. And look, some clubs have some really exceptionally skilled club managers or people in the committees that are really good at knowing how to fill out the forms and extract money to be able to fund the clubs. Basically, the only other way, the other form of main funding is subscriptions to your people that come along and that.
How much often effort, or let's say 100, like out of 100, what percentage of funds do clubs actively go out and try and get some self-sufficiency, or try and actually generate funds and not just be reliant on handouts or sponsorships? Are there things that they do to be self-sufficient? Like the club you were involved with, it's called Indoor Net. It must generate a whole lot of income, right?
Yeah, depending on how it's run.
$20, $30 a net, and there's a massive shortage for nets in central Auckland.
Yeah, look, I mean, the club I was at was quite lucky in that I think we were maybe only the second club in Auckland or the third club in Auckland to have an indoor net centre, and obviously since that time other clubs have got these indoor net centres now, so there's a bit more competition involved in it than that. But if a club is run correctly and the objectives are set out properly, these nets should be making you money, to a certain level. Obviously, there's different ways these nets are hired out. If you're a club member, then obviously you get a slightly cheaper rate than non-club members, or you've got other clubs that don't have them. They want to hire the nets and that. So you charge out a slightly higher.
So would you say a clubs with indoor nets should or would have very strong finances, because they should technically be turning over quite a bit?
I would say technically, yeah, they should be. Obviously, once the debt is paid off to build those facilities and that, and these facilities don't come cheap. The club should be starting to make money out of it and then building reserves from there. But unfortunately, look, as I say, it comes down to how a club's run. Some clubs, the objectives of each club is quite different, and they're run by some individuals who have, shall we say, a bit more interest in personal gain than the wider club gain or community gain. So money can be squandered and even lost if these facilities aren't run correctly.
So,
Just so just
can
to
I
ask
ask-
Stephen, sorry, now we've got Stephen back in there.
Guys.
What are your current how are you finding funding? What is QMU using to get the dollars in to help run the club? I mean, obviously you do get some amount from Auckland Cricket. What other avenues are you using to try and get funding in?
Well, we're pretty lucky. We've got a couple of fairly helpful local sponsors, about 4, which all pull together. Grant funding's a big one, but it's become a lot harder in the last couple of years, grant funding. There's so many, not just sporting bodies out there, but just community groups all needing help and support. And the grant funding, it's sort of a shrinking pot, if you like, because obviously the grant funding all comes from gambling. So it's sort of, I don't know if it's correct in this time and these ages to say it, but, it's a bit like how smoking used to sponsor quite a lot of sporting events, and obviously, and alcohol to a lesser extent now. Same with grant funding from gambling. So it's sort of almost a revenue stream that's got a finite future.
So how, in terms of you've mentioned that you're lucky because you've got sort of 4 good sponsors there that working with the club. How does that relationship between the sponsors and the club work? Is it primarily a one-way street, or are you trying to give back to the sponsors as well? And if you do, how do you do that?
Well, yeah, I suppose I wouldn't call it a one-way street. The pluses is what a sponsor gets out of sponsorship is, other than advertising and self-promotion of their company, is a belonging in the community, an identity in the community, seeming to give back to the community that supports their business. So we acknowledge the sponsor and encourage our members and people who visit the club and the club website, etc., to support these businesses. If they've got a choice in their spending, go with the ones that are helping out your local community group. So that's probably the main part of the two-way street, if you like. And in one case, there, it's like many things. It's a case of, if there's a family involvement in the sport, so there's a personal interest towards the club, then normally that sponsorship, it's supporting something that they're passionate about as well. And in one case, we're lucky with that particular sponsor. But we acknowledge them through Facebook shout outs, which social media, you can't underestimate the impact and the effectiveness of that support that the business is given once it's sort of given a thumbs up, a like, if you like, on social media. So that's
Taryn,
probably,
did you have? Yep, sorry, Taryn, did you have something there?
I was going to ask. I was basically going to ask, like, what really, like, I mean, yes, they get a bit of mileage out of us, Steve, but are they just doing it because they want to support the community? Like, the crux of it, is it because they just want to see their community do well and like look after the kids and the community
Give something
members?
back.
Is that really the crux of it?
I think it's not it's very dependent on the individual. With sponsorship, I feel. In our case, I think we're lucky. Our club has a fantastic story. It's not a established club, even though it's been around for 75 years. It's not an established club in the landscape of Auckland cricket. Anyway, the upper echelons of Auckland cricket. We're very much a phoenix, if you like, rising from the ashes. The club has just achieved, after 20 years, principal club status, as before my last technical difficulty I was talking about. So, that's something, if you're a sponsor, would be quite neat. I'm hoping in the future that our club's going to have quite a cool story evolving as we sort of venture into Premier grade cricket properly. And
and the area continues to grow. And it's sort of like, and where we are in QMU, that area is growing with the special housing zone, and with that, we're seeing new membership come, and our community's growing and our club's growing. So, like I said, it's a story that can be told, and business is business, and if you've got a good story to tell, it's good for your business, and if you're associated with that good news story, it reflects good on your business. So that's another plus for the sponsors.
What are some of the challenges for both of you, actually, and maybe start with Aaron? As chairman of an amateur cricket club in New Zealand, where obviously we probably behind, well, you wouldn't say rugby, but definitely behind football in numbers, and probably behind rugby in finances. So what are some of the challenges you face?
I obviously, as I say, I haven't been involved for a while, but the major challenges, as always with any sort of sporting club or in any sport is money and funding. That's your biggest issue. They just, like Stephen said, obviously, and I said before, a large amount of funding was, through trusts, through gambling, and that. I know, like Paul's posed a question about the dilemma between gambling and sports, kids sports and that, but at the end of the day, you can't you can't be looking into those things and making moral judgments. You just got to go where the money is so that you can keep your club going and, put it to use, put it to good use with those kids and growing numbers in the sport. And as I said, the major issue I think is that you don't get that amount of funding coming from your head office, or whether it's New Zealand Cricket or Auckland Cricket. No matter what they say, the money is not that comes filters through the clubs is a pitiful amount compared to what you're asked to do, and with that money to try and maintain the sports numbers for them so they can put it into their elite sports people.
Do you want me to answer that one, Tara?
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, it's funnily enough, I was having a conversation about this with somebody today, and I don't feel there are clubs in Auckland should be in danger, unlike, say, in the press lately, the rugby club rugby in Auckland, North Harbour regions come under the spotlight and struggling for numbers.
Yeah.
On average, it's pretty static, the numbers, about 10,000 players playing club cricket in Auckland every year. And that really hasn't changed dramatically for the last decade. There's only 16 clubs in Auckland, realistically. There's a couple of other smaller clubs, but in big sense numbers, there's only 16 clubs. And that's in the whole geographical area of what you'd call North Harbour and Auckland Club Rugby, Northern Football and Auckland Football. And both those two major winter codes, they have in excess to combine 30 plus clubs in both of them respectively, which when that's the case, you're always going to struggle with numbers because there's so many different. I think the challenge for clubs, just to shorten the answer up, is how they're being run and if they're being run properly, sustainably. And that's looking after your player base, your juniors that are coming through, and looking after your members as well that are playing senior cricket, and not just being focused on your top side, which is your showpiece, but everybody who's playing for your club, who's paying subs and who are part of your club, because that's your club, isn't it? Your members. And I think sometimes the clubs that may find themselves in trouble are the clubs that aren't focusing on all their members, but are just focusing on parts of their club, maybe more the shinier parts of the club, let's say, without pointing fingers into too many corners. But yeah, 16 clubs in Auckland cricket, I think that's a very viable number. It just comes down to how those clubs are run. And that's the only struggle or issue I think a club in Auckland cricket at the moment will have, other than something like a pandemic or anything else crazy like that may happen.
So you've
Sorry, Ashton. You know how, Steve, like if you're reading any form of media, and we've all heard and read about the struggles of rugby and the dying numbers, especially in and around Auckland and all that carry on. I've got my views on it. I think, that's separate, but they changing, which they point quite heavily towards changing demographics of Auckland, right? And the growth and popularity of a very good winter secondary option in football has meant many families have turned towards football, especially with the concussion and the health issues that have come to light over the years. So, what do you see any of that potentially happening with cricket, considering the changing demographics?
Not really. No, I don't see that happening. I only see that happening if this is the beauty of cricket, like soccer over rugby. And saying that, I'll declare my hand now that I played rugby and I'm very passionate about my rugby. I love my rugby, but soccer, football appeals to a wider, more diverse, and probably reflects the changing dynamics of our city more so than rugby in terms of all-inclusive. Certain parts of our population probably, because for a myriad of reasons, to be quite honest, probably wouldn't consider playing rugby, but would consider maybe watching it. Whereas cricket, I can't see it. The only way it's going to happen is if it's manipulated in a way that it becomes unpopular. There's plenty of kids of all rainbow colours, if we're going down that track, who want to play cricket and love cricket, not just because they happen to come from the subcontinent and that's sort of what their dad played and they feel obligated to it, or not because they come from a certain part of Auckland where in the summer you either play tennis or cricket. And that's where the responsibility comes to the clubs and the people running the clubs to install that enjoyment of cricket to the kids coming through and teach them that cricket's for everyone. That's the fantastic thing about cricket. They used to say that about rugby, but rugby's changed. Now you have to be 6'6" and 110 kgs of pure muscle and be able to run 100 meters like Usain Bolt and all the rest of it to play rugby, no matter if you're a winger or a forward. Whereas cricket, it still doesn't matter if you're 4'5" or whether you're 6'7", or whether you're incredibly overweight like some of the international cricketers from the lesser countries, or whether you're an athlete.
I thought you were just referring to our club. I thought you were just referring to. You had a couple of people on the spectrum, height-wise and weight-wise. So I was like, oh, you're just covering out.
But it was probably subconsciously in my mind. But what I mean is, they can all play cricket and enjoy. But
that is the beauty of cricket. You don't have to be an athlete.
The game.
You don't have to be an athlete to beat an athlete in cricket.
Yeah. And the main thing is, you just have to love the game. End of story.
Have you guys received historically, or do you tend to receive any demographical numbers or data around what ethnic backgrounds play the game or dominate the game in Auckland? Do you guys have any statistics along those lines?
Yeah, there was a survey done a few years ago.
So what was that?
Sorry, what was that? Auckland Cricket did a survey a few years back, didn't they?
Yeah, there was a survey done a few years back by Auckland Cricket on the different ethnicities playing cricket. And I think...
Sorry, I'm going to have to jump in here. This sounds like sort of like a quarantine type situation where they're running off. How can Auckland Cricket not know the ethnicities of all their registered players? It's you do that when you register a player. You put in there what they're. You don't have to run a separate survey.
It's optional.
It's
optional. Yeah, sure, it's optional. But generally speaking, most people fill it in.
No,
yeah, most people do, but there is a percentage that don't.
Yeah. But I mean, it's going to give you a good indication of where your numbers are.
Yeah, you can going through the registration on Crick HQ. Yeah, there is a thing that identifies it, and there's a fairly accurate picture out there. Obviously, if you did a proper survey, but I think the main reason is it's not a focus for Auckland Cricket. It's something that's being supported in terms of helping out ethnic minorities within Auckland and supporting them with their cricket. And we've got an incredibly diverse ethnic population playing cricket in Auckland, not just your obvious individuals, but right through to Nepalese who have their own team.
So 25 years ago, you could almost picture rugby sitting there going, nah, these guys aren't really a focus for us, maybe in the mid-90s. And look where they are now, absolutely scrounging for numbers because they didn't really care that they were strong, they were doing well, and they were fine, right? If that focus doesn't shift it into tapping the current, bubble for cricketing numbers or the continuity of it, do you not think it'll get challenged, possibly?
Only if once again, I go down the path. I use our club as an example, Taryn, where we're not specifically on purpose targeting any group that may bolster our numbers one way or the other. What we're doing is facilitating cricket that is appealing to the whole community. And if you give a product, if you put a product out there that people want to play, and it doesn't matter whether they're South African expats on the shore or whether they're Fijian rugby players who want to have a game of T20 on a Sunday, you provide it, and you'll be looked after. But I think you're going to run down a hole too far if you just focus on one aspect of it and go, this is where we're going to throw all our eggs in one basket, and then you're going to neglect the whole population. And that's the thing about it. Speaking about what it's like to be a chair of a club, you're always having to consider the whole picture. So it's not just your new members and your potential members, it's your existing membership. And you've got to look after that whole cricketing community. And I think that's the focus you have to have.
It's saying that, I'm just going to say, this is like you mentioned about the, so like, was it a Fijian league on a Sunday, was it, Steve? But I mean, like...
no, I was saying, I was using it as an example.
Yeah, but what I'm... No, we don't want to stereotype, but what I was going to say is that like there's so many leagues that are actually starting up, isn't there? And Aaron, you can probably talk to the Indo-Kiwi how people are getting together and starting up their own competitions, and these aren't 3 or 4 teams, these are 10, 15, 20 teams.
Yep. Oh, yeah, look, yeah, I mean, that tournament that you specifically mentioned there, Indo-Kiwi cricket, that I've been fortunate to be part of for the last 5-6 seasons. They've actually been running for about 11 years now, just, the season gone. Basically started off with a, I guess, try and put this nicely, but a bunch of Indian guys, who happened to marry up with Kiwi Indian girls. So they've migrated out here as, son-in-laws and etc. And they're passionate about cricket. And, they just started these cricket teams. Now, I'm not sure if I should mention names, but Heron, who's basically, the guy who started this off, he runs 11 one-day teams on a Saturday, through Grafton Cricket Club, has been for many years. But then they've also put together this T20 S1E10 competition that's, as I said, been running over the last 11 years now. You get about from there, you know, in that competition, which is run on Sundays over about five or 6 weeks, you know, you have 16 teams, so you have group stages through to semi-finals, finals, with winners taking away prize money in that. Now that's just as you alluded to earlier, was just one competition. Obviously, Taryn, we know now there's maybe 2 or 3 other such competitions run by, and you know, it is mainly the ethnic minorities that have put these comps together and are
So
running them.
basically,
There's
it's
nothing,
a-
there's been no initiatives of
Yeah,
Auckland
go-
Cricket to come and set these up and run these. You know, they were actually surprised to find out these tournaments are running in some cases. But you know, one of these tournaments is run in the format of like the IPL in India. Players are auctioned off. You know, teams buy players on an auction night, and you know, it's
So,
yeah.
so basically, it's to use the words that Paul's actually used. It says you've got a lot of unsanctioned tournaments that are being held outside of the umbrella of Auckland Cricket or Auckland Association Cricket. Is Auckland Cricket doing anything to actually pull them in and
Yes.
to sort of leverage that? What are they doing
Darren,
about it?
Yeah.
over to you, Taryn.
Yeah. I wouldn't call it unsanctioned. They're just they fall outside the scope, or I'd say outside the umbrella of organized cricket. It is still organized cricket, but it doesn't fall under the ACA banner.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Sorry, yeah.
Which, to their credit, have actually sought funding through Active, which is a governing body, and Sport Auckland and New Zealand Cricket, and actually invested in certain clubs initially where they saw quite a strong hotbed for this kind of activity, invested in them to try and engage with them and try and not necessarily bring them into the system, but to offer them more resource to better their cricketing experience. And
I
a lot
mean,
of these
that's the objective, isn't it, of Auckland Cricket was to try and, I mean, obviously Auckland Cricket want to bring them under their umbrella,
Yeah.
to add numbers to their, or you know, playing numbers under their banner, so that again, it's a matter of funding. It's, you know, when you go to what's it? What do we call it? Sport New Zealand, or who, you know,
New Zealand
the
Sport,
government
yeah, Sport New
that
Zealand.
administers the funding payouts. They look at your playing numbers or participation numbers.
So
And
there's another element to it, the way, and Steve would know about this from a grounds angle, is the more cricketers that you can show playing cricket, or the need for playing cricket, then Auckland Cricket actually has more leverage to go to the council and say we need more cricket pitches, which can then be used for organised cricket. Right? So is that right, Steve? Is that how it works?
Yeah, no, yeah, 100% right, Taryn. And that's the other issue you have with, and we're lucky up here in Auckland, where the council does pay for, you know, nearly 100% of them running and looking after the grounds, whereas in Wellington, the Wellington Association has to contribute to the upkeep of the wickets. So we're pretty lucky here in Auckland that we do get that. But to continue to get that support, yeah, we need to maximise the utilisation of the wickets and the fields. So by sort of getting all these various leagues and games under one sort of, well, not on one umbrella, but one focal point, you've got a lot more power when you discuss with the council. Well, you know, these, rather than just Saturdays and the odd Friday grounds being used, they're being used Saturday, Sunday, and then a couple of times during the week. And all of a sudden, you've got more lobby power. So
Yeah, I mean, Steve, I hope Steve doesn't mind me saying this, but that's where Steve and QMU Cricket have always been quite progressive. They understand the need to do this. They work closely with the football club up at Hopai Domain, and through the winter and through the summer, we make our cricket pitches, the artificial pitches, available to the community as much as possible, because it's important that the visibility of cricket is out on those fields. So when community members, council members are driving past or walking through, see this place is actually being utilized. And if it doesn't happen, there's other clubs out there wanting space and looking for green acres, and they'll readily come in and say, well, there's nobody using it. We need it. We want to form a club there. So there's a lot more there, and
Absolutely.
Steve's done a great job.
So in terms of I'm going to take Simon's question or comment there and turn it a little bit and sort of saying, so obviously we've seen good success with some of these ethnic groups setting up their own leagues and what needs to happen in terms of the European community to sort of get them together to start organising some leagues, or possibly expanding these subcontinent leagues, for want of a term, and becoming more inclusive for more sort of that thing.
Can I turn that around ever so slightly, and then I'll let Stephen Aaron talk about it.
Have a go. Yep.
Why I'm questioning. Okay, so the European community, should I say, probably don't feel the need to have leagues. Is that because these immigrant community members, are they feeling that they don't belong or aren't welcome in that league, which is why they go off and start their own leagues? They're a lot more comfortable, because we all know, especially Steve and Aaron, about the trials and tribulations of one-day cricket and the angst that goes around with umpiring and cheating and God knows what. Right?
What are you talking about, Taryn?
Is there an element of that they don't feel welcome? Because Steve, you might also know that a lot of clubs feel these one-day grades don't offer much to cricket clubs other than numbers.
Yeah, precisely, and also taking it, in a slightly different direction as well. As we had a team of I'd call them casual cricketers that played arranged matches against other teams like themselves, mainly made up of guys who've come over here from India just to do work and send money home, etc. And their perception of playing club cricket was you had to be almost what we'd deem to be a first-class player. And when I was talking to them one day at the Domain, they would just, once the proper Saturday cricket was out of the way, they'd just jump on a spare pitch and have a game of cricket. And so, being a sort of a welcoming club, we just sort of had a chat to them, and they wanted to use the grounds to have a game on a Sunday at the club, and we said, yeah, that's fine, and if you want to use upstairs, you can. We're happy, So just put out the welcome mat, and then they sort of said, would we be able to play? Do you have a T20 competition we can play? And I said, well, what did you guys want to play? And that's how the conversation evolved, and it eventually came out that they'd really like to play one-day cricket on a Saturday, but felt that, they had to be, like I said, sort of almost first-class cricketers to play it. So there is that
lack of knowledge,
cultural
awareness
of how accessible club cricket is. So rather than go down that, it was just through good luck and a bit of communication that the whole thing evolved. And I think that's what our club's been quite proactive, particularly with you at Point there, Taryn, which is how you initially began your involvement with the club. Was we realised we needed somebody to be a first point of contact and to actively see what's out there and make contact with organisations and just see what support they needed. I felt we could go out there and sort of go, hey, we just want as many members as we can so our numbers look great. It was a case of, how can we help you guys? Because at the end of the day, you've got to keep it fairly simple, which is keep people playing cricket and enjoying cricket. That's what, the core function of the club is.
I don't want to keep pumping QMU's tires here, but to answer Simon's question, the European New Zealand, as Simon put it, not me, there is a competition for that is played by the European New Zealand. At QMU, it's called Twilight Cricket, and Steve can elaborate on that. There's 16 teams, I believe, predominantly New Zealand, European or New Zealand Pākehā,
Yep.
social cricketers that barely participate in any Saturday cricket. Put teams out, turn up on a Tuesday night, and drink the bar dry. Steve, all yours.
Yeah, that
Good for the club.
that's pretty much it. I hope none of them are watching now because it makes them sound like a very stereotypical New Zealander male back in the
Nothing wrong with that.
1980s.
Sounds
But,
good to me.
The positive is that we actually do have a team, the old the Desi Warriors. They play in it, who are a team that sort of play quite a lot of social cricket. I don't know if they even play club cricket for anyone, but they enter in quite a few T20 tape ball T10 tournaments. So that competition's oversubscribed. Last Man Stands is another competition that would probably challenge the question. But yeah, I think you answered the question fairly well at the beginning, Taryn. It's a case of there's no real need. I think there's the comfortableness of the established competition because it's very sort of that's where its roots were in New Zealand originally, when it was very much the domain of the white New Zealand farmer, for want of a better word. That's how cricket started in New Zealand. Small country towns playing arranged, and there wasn't a lot of ethnic diversity in New Zealand back then. Really playing cricket. You either played rugby or you played in the summer. You played cricket, or you went to the beach and went for a swim. And then as the country's become more diverse, obviously the game has.
Steve, can I put it back to you this way about the organisation? When you've got a group of people who are running the sport in the guise of, say, Auckland cricket or New Zealand cricket, then, I'll come out and put it this way, mainly made up of middle-aged white men, then they do not have the knowledge of how to interact or, get the new arrivals into New Zealand that have come in from Southeast Asia, to get the message out to them that how cricket is run in New Zealand, and so that these people would can participate and become active members of clubs and come and play cricket. Like Taryn, Ashwin, even Rohit, myself, in the area around here in Central Auckland where we live. If you go past the local cricket club here in the park, Keith A Park, you've got 8 pitches now. Just a few weeks, ago, while we were in lockdown, Ashwin was down there with his son in the nets playing, and I went down, as well. Before I joined up, I went for a walk around the park. Now, this is basically what we were in May, I think.
Yep.
The ground was actually full. The pitches were being utilised, fully utilised. There were games going on virtually in the middle of May.
Middle of winter.
Middle of winter, playing cricket.
I wouldn't disagree with anything you said there. 100%. And to Auckland's cricket's credit, there is a realisation of this has been lacking, and there is an awakening, if you like, or an awareness. I don't know how quickly that's happening. I think complacency of numbers may make some clubs a little less progressive than others. I can actually sit here and feel quite proud of our club in the fact that we are probably one of the more progressive clubs in Auckland, I dare say, and that reflects in how people have gravitated to join our club.
Totally agree. Totally agree on that, Steve.
And one would hope that going forward, this is the beauty of cricket, etc., is it's a sport that'll bring people from all walks of life together that normally wouldn't socialise for whatever reason, with a common interest in cricket, and whether that's professionals, business executives and blue collar workers, or a myriad of different ethnicities. And then the beauty there is the learning potential of different cultures and experiences that you'll get on your own back doorstep.
So I'm just going to jump in there.
That dovetails back to what being a part of a club is when you move into a new area. Sorry?
Yep. So I'm going to jump in there, and this is like, so we're talking about diversity, and is it? I mean, like, can you get to a club and basically the club there has no diversity, and how detrimental is that? I mean, like, we're not talking about. We're talking about immigrants that have basically now taken a club over effectively, and is it detrimental to a club to do that?
Well, only from the point of view of if that club had no other, what's happened to all the members that were there at the beginning? Is that club been in recess? And that's where I go back to the very first
running
thing
of the club.
said is the only thing that's ever
here.
see club cricket go south is the way it's being run, and the chairman of the club, how he runs his ship. If a club is, the more members, and it doesn't matter where they come from, join the club, the better it is for the club, in my opinion. Now, in that regards, to answer your question, if your club is overrun with new members, and the only way you're going to have problems is if all of a sudden the whole focus is on the new membership and the old membership is neglected or taken for granted, then you're going to have issues. But if what you're trying to create is a happy United Nations environment, for want of a better word, and that's one of your roles as a chairman, to ensure that happens by the way you've set your club up.
No, it's very much so like a commercial environment, isn't it? When you let's say you're with your electricity company and they offer new members, new customers a special deal, and it's like, hey, what about me? I've been a loyal customer, and you're neglecting me. You can't do it.
You can't do that. It's a bit, say for instance, you had a team approach you from another club, and they said, we'll bring all our players with us. We've got a couple of former first-class players playing in our team, and if you get us in your club there and you give us your second team spot, we'll bolster it, and our better players, or former first-class players, can play for your first team. And then all your existing players, you go, rightio, boys, you're playing in the thirds now because this new team's going to fill that spot. You're doing a disservice to these guys who've been with your club forever. In the same regards, you're not going to tell these guys, hey, nah, go away. You're going to say to them, nah, look, we've got a space for you guys in the club. Join our club, but you're going to have to be inclusive and part of the club. And there's opportunities within our club for your players, if they wish to play at a higher level. And that's how you've got to approach it. So, like I said, it comes down to the way it's being managed
Oh, I suppose, as we always do every week, we've gone a bit over time, so we better wrap it up. Any final words you'd like to say in terms of your roles there, past and present?
No.
Yeah.
Great.
And Steve?
I'd just say it's a job you do because you're passionate about the sport and you want to see the sport thrive. That's the only reason you do the job, and that's why you end up doing it for life, I suppose.
It's a thankless task. You're doing a really great job, Steve.
Yep.
Karen?
Yeah, it's a passion.
Karen, Rohit, any final comments?
No, I think if anything, I was part of a health and safety course today, and it was a wonderful day. And they talk about the hours that the board members or volunteers put in.
Yep.
And to the point that I don't know, many people don't know this, but it's recognized so highly that volunteers, especially the board of trustees, they're not actually liable for any accidents or any issues that happen, because the time commitment that they put in is so valuable that they're giving it up. It's a volunteer hours, right?
Yep.
And the reason I bring that up is I think not many people thank club chairs and other board member, club committee members. They get nothing in return. Yes, you start off because your son's playing there, but in both these gentlemen's cases, their sons no longer play there, but both of them are still affiliated to the club. So I think, yeah, it's just a wonderful thing that they had done, do, and continue to do. So yeah, they probably should get recognised for their time.
No, well, look, as I say, we better wrap it up there. So I'd like to thank Aaron and Stephen for joining us on the show tonight to give their insights into what a club manager's, or sorry, a club chairman's role is, or what a club actually does in general. So and again, to everybody out there, thank you for joining us again on Swinging from the Hip, your cricketing fix for the week. And we look forward to seeing you here on New Zealand Sport Radio every Thursday at 8 p.m. Remember, we've got our other shows on a Monday night. We've got our Super Rugby reviews. Tuesday nights, if we get some contestants on, so put your hand up for Do You Know Your Sport. Wednesday nights, we've got our league show. And Thursday nights, of course, you've got Swinging from the Hip right here, 8 p.m. on New Zealand Sport Radio. Thank you for watching.